Thank you very much. I was sitting on the dais, and a Secret Serviceman walked up with this note from the Hay Adams. It says, "Al, don't be nervous. There's nobody important here. Dick Cavett." So, Dick Cavett's here, so someone, let me get this thing out of here. Anyway, it's a tremendous honor to be short. By the way, I thought the president was very funny. Didn't you? I mean, you're no Dick Lugar, but... Now, the last time I was in this room, actually, this is an honor to be asked back again, but the last time I was in this room actually was a little over a month ago for the radio and TV Correspondents dinner. And actually, during the evening, I came up with the title to my next book, Don Imus is a Big Putz. Okay, quick. My impression of Don Imus at the 1944 Radio Correspondents Dinner. Don Imus at the 1944 Radio Correspondents Dinner. For those of you listening on radio, the president is a cripple. You know, I guess what Imus was trying to do was sort of demonstrate his shock jock bona fides by showing that he was willing to walk, you know, speak in front of 3,000 people and offend, you know, pretty much everyone. That is not my goal tonight. Let me let you in on my goal. If at the end of this evening, the Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, walks out of this hotel thinking, you know, that Al Franken is a pretty funny guy, then I know I will have failed miserably. And let a lot of people down. If, on the other hand, the president leaves thinking, you know, Al would make a pretty good consul general to Bermuda. Mission accomplished. But the Correspondents Association was afraid of a repeat of the whole Imus debacle, so the Board of Governors had a meeting and drew up some ground rules for tonight's talk. For example, there are a number of subjects I've been instructed to avoid. Whitewater, specifically Webb Hubble, Susan Thomas's, either of the McDougalls. I am not to do jokes about any aspect of the president's personal life except his eating habits. Evidently, sir, you eat a lot. And the Correspondents Association seems to think that we could have quite a bit of harmless fun with that. Other subjects to avoid: Newt Gingrich's first wife, Bob Dole's first wife, Phil Graham's first wife, Dick Armey's first wife, Rush Limbaugh's first wife. Well, Rush Limbaugh's second wife, Rush Limbaugh's third wife. Now, here's a real odd one, and it's really kind of, I don't know. I can do jokes about abortion, but only first trimester abortions. Isn't that odd? Okay, now this one's almost insulting. I must remain fully clothed. For example, I cannot moon the First Lady. Carl, what do you think I am, a shock jock? So, Carl, you can rest assured that I'm not going to do any jokes tonight that could make the president or the First Lady even remotely uncomfortable. And if you believe that, I've got some land in Arkansas I'd like to sell you. But I can can sympathize somewhat with Imus because when you do a speech like this, it's really, you have to risk offending someone. When I did this dinner 2 years ago, I did a joke that actually is still quite timely. The joke was this. Having Al D'Amato lead an ethics investigation is a little like having Bob Dornan head up a mental health task force. Not a bad joke. So this is a true story. 3 days later, I was in Hollywood, I was in someone's office, and this person's assistant walks in and says, Al, Congressman Bob Dornan is on the phone for you. I said, okay. Oh, Congressman. Al, I heard you did me in at the White House Correspondents' dinner. So, well, Congressman, I told a joke. Well, what was the joke? Okay, the joke was having Al D'Amato lead an ethics investigation is a little like having Bob Dornan head up a mental health task force. And there was a pause, and then, hell, that's okay. So now I like Bob Dornan. He's a crazy homophobe, but he can take a joke. That's Now, speaking of Al D'Amato, I'm pretty well known for my Al D'Amato impression. You want to hear it? Okay.
We are simply attempting to ascertain the veracity of the First Lady vis-a-vis and in regard to the discrepancies and inconsistencies, which I am told mean the same thing. Insofar as they relate to the documentation contained in the documents and the information therein vis-a-vis and in regard to, does anyone remember how I started this sentence?
Thank you, Al D'Amato. No. Let's keep going. This year actually has been a very exciting one for me because for a while this winter I was actually a member of the press corps. I briefly covered the campaign for Newsweek. I remember one night in Manchester, New Hampshire, I attended a Dole event. It was a VFW spaghetti dinner, and it was a very special night for Senator Dole because there were actually a few people there who were older than him. And it turned out to be a real morale booster. So the next day I went to the Milford Rotary Club to see Steve Forbes, who's here tonight out there. By the way, Mr. Forbes, my book did so well that I'm now for the flat tax. No, I really believe having my royalties taxed at 17 instead of 39.6% will unleash my creative energies. Anyway, it was this cold day in Milford, and there were about 100 of us out there in the press corps, freezing, locked out of the Rotary Club, because according to the Forbes press guy, we had scared the Rotarians. So we're standing out there for 2 hours, and this Dutch crew decides to interview me. This is how little was happening. So this Dutch correspondent says to me, "Which of the Republicans do you like the most?" And I said, "Well, I guess of the Republicans, I like Bob Dole the most." He said, "Oh, but he is so old." I said, "Well, you know, he wasn't too old to save your sorry Dutch ass." I said, now, how long exactly did it take the Nazis to roll over Holland? Was that like an hour? Now, by this point in the campaign, Phil Gramm had dropped out, which, to be honest, I had sort of seen coming. The first time I saw him speak on the stump, he said,
I flunked the 3rd, 7th, and 9th grades.
Gee, what a surprise. Now, I followed Buchanan around for a few days in South Carolina, and I had met Buchanan in '88 at the Atlanta Convention. When I came back to New York, I told my friends in New York, you know, Pat Buchanan is charming. He's a very charming guy. And more than one of my friends said, oh, yeah, well, Goebbels was charming, which is just so unfair, because Goebbels wasn't charming. No, Goebbels was an ill-tempered backbiter. Anyway, my Newsweek assignment was to get an interview with Buchanan, which I didn't get, but I came up with some questions, and I don't want to waste them, so here they are. Mr. Buchanan, you have said that 1 million immigrant Englishmen would assimilate to life in America better than 1 million Zulus. Who do you think would do better, 1 million Zulus or 1 million Pygmies? You have said that Holocaust survivors had, quote, group fantasies of martyrdom and heroics. Is the same true of your followers? Have you ever had a homoerotic dream? Got some water, something. Now, Lamar Alexander is here tonight over there, and I think we all remember. I think we all remember Lamar's ABCs, Alexander beats Clinton, or as I like to call it, a bad campaign. Of course, we all know the Alexander campaign would have gone nowhere without the support of Bill Bennett. Now, I haven't actually read the Book of Virtues, but I have seen Bennett on TV quite a bit, and evidently smugness is one of the basic virtues. And no one knows that now better than Bob Dole. I don't need to tell you in the media that things are not going well for him. Dole is now behind the president in every demographic group except one. Apparently, he still enjoys a slight lead among agribusiness executives. For now, the Dole campaign is kind of dead in the water, and the feeling is that the only thing that can really revive it is if Colin Powell agrees to be on the ticket. And, you know, the whole Colin Powell phenomenon sort of led me to one inescapable conclusion, which is that the first Jew to be elected president of the United States will have to be a 4-star general. And that gave me the idea of looking for a Jew in the military that we could start grooming for a run at the White House. And so I did some research. Now, unfortunately, it turns out that the highest ranking Jew in the armed forces right now is Comptroller of the Coast Guard. I think New Jersey Governor Christie Whitman would be a good choice for Dole. She's very popular, and I have a theory on this that I've never heard anyone else articulate. Americans love royalty, and no one represents royalty to Americans more than, even though they're getting divorced, Princess Di and Prince Charles. Christie Whitman is a dead cross between Princess Di and Prince Charles. Now, I've been told that the Dole campaign has eliminated John Engler from consideration. Apparently, he's 2 pounds overweight. Now, the Clinton and Dole campaigns, or camps, have yet to agree on how the debates will work. The Clinton campaign would like a series of 8 debates on subjects ranging from economic insecurity to the environment. The Dole campaign wants 1 debate on the subject, my war record. Of course, the campaign has now moved back to the Capitol here, and the big battle for most of this past year has been the budget. And last week, the president finally signed a budget for fiscal '96, and that's good. But there's still a lot of work to do toward balancing the budget over the next 7 years. Now, how can we cut all these programs, retain civilization as we know it, and become a better and more compassionate country? Well, I've looked at the budget, and it can be done, but we need creative thinking to make it work. In the spirit of Gingrich and Kasich, I have an idea. Now, every proposal for balancing the budget includes cuts for both Medicare and NASA. Now, here are two seemingly unrelated facts. Fact one, 30% of Medicare expenditures are incurred by people in the last year of their lives. Fact two, NASA spends billions a year on astronaut safety. Maybe you see where I'm going. Why not shoot the elderly into space? Now stay with me, because I'm not just talking about the budget here, I'm talking about science. Just think how many more manned space operations NASA could undertake if they didn't have to worry about getting the astronauts back. Now, I'm not saying we don't try to get them back. We just don't make such a big deal about it. You know, that way we don't have to use the shuttle every time, which is very expensive. Put an old Mercury, you know, on top of an old Saturn rocket, fire it up, see what happens. And if the Houston, we've got a problem call comes, Mission Control can simply reply, best of luck, we're rooting for you. We can learn so much. What is the effect of weightlessness on arthritis? Let's make it our goal to perform the first hip replacement in space before the millennium. Would aluminum foil make a good spacesuit for a spacewalk? Or would you just bake like a potato? That would be fun to know. This whole thing can be a tremendous boon to what is called raw science. For example, how close to the sun can a person get before he bursts into flame? And would it make any difference if he's fat? Now, here's another idea. I'm not a military expert, so I'm not sure that this is feasible, but here it is. From what I've read, I understand there is nothing more terrifying in battle than seeing enemy hordes charging at you with no regard for their own lives. Why have we always insisted on asking our young men and now our young women in the flower of their lives to risk themselves in combat? Why not, in the right situation, use a human wave of our elderly to scare the enemy? Now think about it. You're an Iraqi or a North Korean soldier. Suddenly over the horizon, you see a battalion of Americans. They won't attack, you think. America wouldn't risk the blood of its precious youth when it could simply employ its sophisticated, expensive weapons. Then you look through your binoculars, and a chill goes down your spine. Retirees, thousands and thousands of them, each one older than the next, each with a life expectancy of 3 or 4 years at most. You think to yourself, what do these people really have to lose? The worst 4 years of their lives? You're terrified. Then they charge. A slow charge, yes, but that makes it even more frightening. Now, admittedly, there's some kinks to work out. Mobilization would be tough. I don't know if you've ever organized a group of seniors for a theater trip. I don't think training would be that hard. It'd be just sort of like, you know, go out there and run. And this would give our World War II era Americans a chance to contribute yet again to our country, just when they thought they were forgotten. I guess what I'm saying is, let's not just talk about our problems, let's talk about solutions. I'll tell you though, I really like being here in this town. And if I were a single guy, I would move to Washington, because there's so many really intelligent, attractive, unattached women here in Washington. Enid Waldholtz, for example. Although I hear it might be a little late, I understand she's found a new guy that she plans to build a whole new life around, Aldrich Ames. Aldrich Ames. He was the spy. Now, ordinarily, I'm not one to engage in self-promotion, but this is C-SPAN, and there are literally hundreds of people watching, so... I'd like to take a moment to mention my book, Rush Limbaugh is a Big Fat Idiot and Other Observations. You know, the first time I heard Rush on the radio, he was spewing about the feminazis and their women as victim ideas. And he was railing about how feminists believe that all heterosexual sex is rape, which I admit is a very hard view to defend. The thing is, though, I know a lot of women, almost all of whom consider themselves feminists, and only one holds this view, and we've been married nearly 20 years. Sorry, honey. Now, Rush Limbaugh is a Big Fat Idiot is, in reality, a very high-minded satire on the breakdown of civility in our public discourse. The breakdown has been a tremendously corrosive effect on society in general, case in point, Don Imus. And that's why tonight, I'd like to do my part to move the national dialogue forward. And in all modesty, I really hope that historians will look back on this speech as a watershed event that ushers in a new age of civility, which will begin immediately after I tell the following jokes about the speaker. Now, I did read Newt's book, To Renew America, and there were an awful lot of futuristic third-wave ideas, the diagnostic health chair, honeymoons in space. You know, a lot of us smoked dope and read Toffler in the 70s. I think Newt's little secret is that he smoked dope and watched the Jetsons. But the speaker is nothing if not a man of ideas, some of which have been very controversial. For example, his gender theories. You remember that Newt said, and I quote, "If combat means living in a ditch, females have biological problems staying in a ditch for 30 days because they get infections." Now, I read this, and the image that immediately came to mind was that of Newt about 15 years ago, explaining to his 13-year-old daughter that she had just gotten her first infection. But the good news is that there are more ideas like that to come, because even though his poll numbers are at an historic low, the speaker is writing another book. Once again, he's taking a $1 advance, not voluntarily. That's the most he could get. Now, one of the great things about speaking here is that you get to invite a whole table of friends. And it's great because my table is table 42 and the speaker's is 41, so my guests get to sit near the speaker, and they're all very excited, and I just thought I'd take a moment to introduce them. Seated at my table are former Speaker of the House Jim Wright, now of Fort Worth, Texas; Gail Sheehy of Vanity Fair magazine; Candace Gingrich of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania; and her friend Martina Navratilova of Aspen, Colorado; Christina Jeffrey of Kennesaw, Georgia. Christina, I know it was a hardship coming all the way up here to Washington, only just, you have to turn back tomorrow and go back. But if you have the time before you leave, I'd really recommend checking out the Holocaust Museum. To Christina's left, Jackie Gingrich of Carrollton, Georgia. And finally, nutritionist Jenny Craig of Del Mar, California. Let's hear it from my table. Now, I kid the speaker. But I know he'd love it, because after all, his own press spokesman, Tony Blankley, said, Don Imus has demonstrated once again that Washington has little capacity to laugh at itself. So let's thank the speaker for being a good sport, shall we? Was he laughing? No. Of course, I'm going to take a few jabs at the speaker because anyone who's read my book knows I'm basically in the president's hip pocket. And there's actually a lot of perks to, you know, being the president's water carrier. For example, Harry Thomason books all my travel. And he's very good, and this is something that just gets lost in the whole Travelgate thing. He got me a Super Saver from Denver to Seattle. And he had to, 59 bucks, he had to backdate the ticket. Well, it's illegal, but anyway. But Harry's great. The great thing, though, is that when Air Force One is available, the president lends it to me. And Air Force One is just great. Anybody here been on Air Force One? Table 41? Anybody? Isn't it great? Especially the front. Oh, man. No, I tell you, first of all, not too many people know that, but they have a zoo up there. As you know. And all kinds of animals, 200-pound python, and then they got this, this like skeleton of a triceratops, which if you're interested in that kind of thing, it's just amazing because you can play with the bones, you know, and you can eat whatever you want. You can just, if you're the type of person that kind of like no regard for your body, you can just stuff your face, you know, up there in the front of Air Force One. By the way, there are a lot of parties thrown tonight by different media organizations, both before and after this event. The Atlantic Monthly has asked me to do them a little favor. Evidently, no one has RSVP'd to their after-dinner cocktail party honoring James Fallows. So if you don't mind, if you just shout a yes or no. Koki? But this year there's been a lot of criticism of the press. The media has been accused of being shallow, biased, and obsessed with the horse race at the expense of the issues, and I agree. Most of you are doing a very bad job. There are some exceptions. Bill Schneider, for example. Bill really cuts through the chaff and gets right to the point. For example, the day before the New Hampshire primary, I was watching CNN, and Bernard Shaw asked him, "Bill, what do we look for tomorrow?" "Well, Bernie, the first thing to look for is who comes in first." Now, the press is likely to portray that person as the big winner. And winning in politics is very important. In fact, this race may well be determined by who wins the most primaries. Now, Bernie, the second thing to watch is who comes in second. That person can claim to be the runner-up. Being runner-up isn't winning, but it's the next best thing. Which brings us to the third thing to look for. Who comes in third, Bill? Yes, Bernie. The third place finisher won't be first or second, but he won't be fourth either. Which means he's still in the top three. Thank you, Bill Schneider. Bill will be back on Friday with his political play of the week. Bill, any hints? Well, Bernie, I'm not making any promises, but it may very well involve whoever comes in first. Thank you, Bill Schneider. Now, I'm sure that you noticed, and the president talked about coming back, arriving in the middle of dinner, and they were attending a charity auction for Chelsea's school. And the president was actually on the auction block tonight. Let me read from the Sidwell Friends 1996 auction catalog. Item 48, a day with the president. Watch history in the making as first parent Bill Clinton provides a sworn deposition in the criminal trial of his former associates. So I had to do, you know, because the speaker, I did. You understand. As I'm sure many of you have heard, the president is making a cameo in a TV movie on the Make-A-Wish Foundation and all the good work that they do. In the movie, the president will appear with a child whose wish it is to see him sign a budget agreement which reaches balance in 7 years using CBO numbers. The president will be playing himself, and this is weird. The part of Vice President Gore will be played by Fred Thompson.
That is weird.
It is weird. It's very weird. Weird. It's just an odd thing. I've also been asked to introduce, by the way, here tonight as guests of Janet Reno and FBI Director Free, Table 19, the Montana Freeman. It's all part of the new FBI siege negotiation protocol. Are you guys ready to give up? No? Oh, take your time. Okay. Kenneth Starr was going to be here tonight, but he had a conflict. Also here tonight, filmmaker Oliver Stone. And Linda Robb is here too, and this to me is very confusing because I've met Linda and she's terrific, you know, especially considering she's the daughter of the man who killed Kennedy. What? Wait a minute, didn't you people see JFK? See, evidently Kennedy wanted to get out of Vietnam, and LBJ and the Mafia and Clay Shaw and the CIA would have no part of it. Well, wait a minute. I'm talking to the very people who have spent their entire careers covering this thing up. Well, you know what? I don't care. Because we in Hollywood tell the truth. Wherever it may lead. And then come back and sit amongst the killers and eat their salmon. By the way, also here tonight is Charles Murray, who I understand has been hard at work on a sequel to The Bell Curve entitled Jazz, the Music Created by Morons. As Charles well knows, when you're on a book tour, you wind up bumping into a lot of authors who are other authors are on the circuit. One I kept running into and spent a lot of time with was Anonymous. What a jackass. Now, one of the embarrassing things about my book success was that I did knock the First Lady's book, It Takes a Village, out of the #1 position on the bestsellers list. Of course, my book was then knocked off by another one of her books, Bloodsport. I was actually a little disappointed by Bloodsport. See, I had thought it was going to be about Tom DeLay's fundraising tactics. See, he's really tough on the... I don't know if you saw that the EEOC had dropped its gender bias this week as gender bias case against Hooters after the restaurant chain agreed to hire male waiters, but only if they have really big knockers. I'm sorry. I was just trying to keep Martin Hoke interested. It's for some people. Now, the minimum wage is a big issue, so during dinner, we did an informal poll of the people in the room. And the results break down pretty much the way you'd expect. 89% of the Democrats in the room favor an increase in the minimum wage. 27% of the Republicans favor an increase, and 100% of the waiters favor an increase in the minimum wage. Also, Frank Luntz did a focus group with the waiters back in the kitchen. Turns out the worst tipper is Ariana Huffington. Now, and guess who the best tipper is? Tipper. Isn't that odd? See, I can do silly jokes. You know, earlier I mentioned something about the president nominating me for some position in the administration, and I was just kidding because I would never want to undergo the brutal Senate confirmation process. Now, I don't know if I could stand up to the brutal cross-examination of someone like Strom Thurmond.
Mr. Franken, I understand you were involved in something called Saturday Night Live, in which it was some kind of vaudeville troupe that performed on radio.
No, Senator, that was TV.
That would be color TV.
Yes, sir. Color television.
I can't hear you. Would you talk in the machine?
Sorry, sir?
Talk in the machine. In the machine. If I may intercede on behalf of my esteemed colleague, I think what Senator Thurman is attempting to ascertain are your bona fides, if I may use that word, because I'm not sure what it means, though I think I used it in the right context, you know, of your credentials and or qualifications in so much as that relates to the jurisdiction and purview of this committee, which words I believe are synonymous, which I am told that they mean the same thing.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You've been a wonderful, wonderful audience. Wait. One last thing. Mike McCurry, would you do me a big favor? Could you make a point out of asking C-SPAN not to run this? I need the publicity. Thank you. An ethics investigation is a little like having Bob Dornan head up a mental health task force. Not a bad joke. So this is a true story. 3 days later, I was in Hollywood, I was in someone's office, and this person's assistant walks in and says, "Al, Congressman Bob Dornan is on the phone for you." I said, okay. "Oh, Congressman, Al, I heard you did me in at the White House Correspondents' dinner." So, well, Congressman, I told a joke. "Well, what was the joke?" "Okay, the joke was having Al D'Amato lead an ethics investigation is a little like having Bob Dornan head up a mental health task force." And there was a pause, and then, hell, that's okay." So now I like Bob Dornan. You know, he's a crazy homophobe, but he can take a joke. And that's enough. Okay, quick. My impression of Don Imus at the 1944 Radio Correspondents' Dinner. Don Imus at the 1944 Radio Correspondents' Dinner. For those of you listening on radio, the president is a cripple. You know, I guess what Imus was trying to do was sort of demonstrate his shock jock bona fides by showing that he was willing to walk, you know, speak in front of 3,000 people and offend, you know, pretty much everyone. That is not my goal tonight. Let me let you in on my goal. If at the end of this evening, the Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, walks out of this hotel thinking, you know, that Al Franken is a pretty funny guy, then I know I will have failed miserably. And let a lot of people down. If, on the other hand, the president leaves thinking, you know, Al would make a pretty good counsel. Thank you very much. I was sitting on the dais, and a Secret Serviceman walked up with this note from the Hay Adams. It says, "Al, don't be nervous. There's nobody important here. Dick Cavett." So, Dick Cavett's here, so someone, let me get this thing out of here. Anyway, it's a tremendous honor to be short. By the way, I thought the president was very funny. Didn't you? I mean, you're no Dick Lugar, but... Now, The last time I was in this room, actually, this is an honor to be asked back again, but the last time I was in this room actually was a little over a month ago for the radio and TV Correspondents dinner. And actually, during the evening, I came up with the title to my next book, Don Imus is a Big Putz. First wife, Rush Limbaugh's first wife. Well, Rush Limbaugh's second wife, Rush Limbaugh's third wife. Now here's a real odd one, and it's really kind of, I don't know, I can do jokes about abortion, but only first trimester abortions. Isn't that odd? Okay, now this one's almost insulting. I must remain fully clothed. For example, I cannot moon the First Lady. Carl, what do you think I am, a shock jock? So, Carl, you can rest assured that I'm not going to do any jokes tonight that could make the President or the First Lady even remotely uncomfortable. And if you believe that, I've got some land in Arkansas I'd like to sell you. But I can sympathize somewhat with Imus because when you do a speech like this, it's really, you have to risk offending someone. When I did this dinner 2 years ago, I did a joke that actually is still quite timely. The joke was this: having Al D'Amato lead a general to Bermuda. Mission accomplished. But the Correspondents Association was afraid of a repeat of the whole Imus debacle, so the Board of Governors had a meeting and drew up some ground rules for tonight's talk. For example, there are a number of subjects I've been instructed to avoid. Whitewater, specifically Webb Hubble, Susan Thomas's, either of the McDougalls. I am not to do jokes about any aspect of the president's personal life except his eating habits. Evidently, sir, you eat a lot. And the Correspondents Association seems to think that we could have quite a bit of harmless fun with that. Other subjects to avoid: Newt Gingrich's first wife, Bob Dole's first wife, Phil Graham's first wife, Dick Armey's first